Today, we're gonna go over a massive situation that surfaced regarding a large YouTuber named KreekCraft who currently has over 16 million subscribers, and to give a brief overview of what has been going on recently, we have to look at the fact that he was already facing a massive wave of backlash. In videos covered by other creators, it was shown that KreekCraft was actually getting cancelled for simply stating that people should be innocent until proven guilty in a situation regarding a Roblox developer, and during that specific situation, people were completely misinterpreting his words and aggressively calling him a sympathizer for a political influencer named Charlie Kirk. But the situation we're going to look at today goes in a completely different direction because it involved direct arguments on the timeline that KreekCraft got involved in himself. And this drama grew so large that it ended up hitting the trending news on Twitter. Now before we begin, please like and hype this video and let's get into it. So we're going to look through exactly what started this entire news sequence of events. So the first thing we have to look at is a post made by KreekCraft on April the 16th. KreekCraft made a pretty bold claim stating that in 6 years, he can run for president and that he can get rid of all age verification laws. He explained his reasoning by stating that all his viewers will be old enough to vote by then, so the problem will be entirely solved. Now obviously this is a joke referencing the strict age verification laws that have been implemented on platforms and how frustrating they can be for younger audiences who just want to play without any heavily restricting barriers. KreekCraft followed up by deciding to tag the CEO of Roblox, David Bajussi, directly to continue the joke. In this reply, KreekCraft asked David Bajussi if he could have a small loan of $1 billion and stated that he needed it for his presidential campaign, and in return, he promised that he would get rid of age verification completely. So at this very point, everything seems like a standard joke that a YouTuber would make to entertain their large audience. Now this is where things take a very dark and unexpected turn, because a user on the platform decided to reply to KreekCraft and bring up the past drama that we mentioned earlier. And it's extremely important to look at the user's profile to understand who exactly KreekCraft is dealing with in this situation. In their profile bio, they clearly state that they're a fan account, and they also explicitly state that they're a minor in all caps. So we have clearly established that this user is someone who's under the age of 18, which will be very important to take into consideration moving forward. And this minor quote tweeted KreekCraft's post, accusing him of sympathizing with Charlie Kirk. They're bringing up the exact narrative used to cancel KreekCraft previously and trying to start an argument over a completely unrelated post. For context, back in April the 10th, this minor dug up an old post from September the 10th, 2025, where KreekCraft stated, "This country is deeply broken and we live in very scary times." The minor quote tweeted this old post and mocked him saying, "Aw, look who's the wife feeling bad for the Kirk." Now to add some crucial context to the specific post in 2025, we need to look at the timeline. This tweet was posted on the exact day that Charlie Kirk was and this is exactly why people began calling him a sympathizer. But what makes this specific interaction so deeply messed up is that this minor was not just trying to bring up old internet drama. They were actively mocking a dead person just to score some cheap internet points and try to win an argument against a massive YouTuber. It takes a very specific type of toxic mindset to use a real world tragedy as ammo for a Twitter argument, especially when the original post was completely harmless. Now it should be obvious to anyone, but I strongly do not agree with the sympathizer accusations against KreekCraft because they make absolutely zero sense. Just because he posted that the country is deeply broken on the day a political figure passed away does not automatically mean he is a supporter or a sympathizer of everything that person stood for. It was a day where the entire internet was in a massive heat of its time, and stating that we live in scary times can only be a very general and valid reaction to a major news event of that scale. So these people are completely in the wrong to try and cancel him over that statement, and they are taking his words out of proportion to paint a false narrative against him. But with that being said, the way KreekCraft chose to respond to this minor is something I completely disagree with because it was very unnecessary. And remember, KreekCraft is a massive creator with over 16 million subscribers, while this user is a literal minor with a very small account. Because instead of simply ignoring the obvious bait or blocking the kid and moving on, in front of his entire audience, KreekCraft called the minor a dumb and stated that when he is president, the first thing he is doing is throwing them in jail. And he ended the post by stating, "This is why Michael Myers is better," which is a clear reference to the fact that the minor's profile picture features the horror character Jason Voorhees. The lack of professionalism from KreekCraft here is extremely glaring because he is a 29-year-old man using his massive platform to hurl insults at a minor and threatening to throw them in a mock arrest simply because they brought up old internet drama. Now to be absolutely clear, KreekCraft mishandling the situation does not excuse the minor's original tweet in any way whatsoever because mocking a tragedy is never okay under any circumstances. However, I do not agree with the way KreekCraft responded here at all because a large YouTuber with over 16 million subscribers is responding to someone who is a very tiny fraction of his influence, and he should have absolutely ignored them completely. When you have an audience of that massive size, every single reply you make acts as a giant spotlight that directs thousands, 10,000s, or even 100,000s of eyes onto whoever you are talking to. Responding aggressively to a small account only fuels the fire and brings unnecessary toxicity to the timeline while putting a target on a literal kid. He had absolutely nothing nothing to gain from arguing with a kid, and he really should have known better than to punch down like that, especially since he creates content made for kids himself. Now, I know some people might say that he was just being sarcastic and continuing his presidential joke, but the reality is, when you have an audience of over 16 million subscribers, it does not matter if you are joking. Most of your massive fan base is not going to treat it like a joke, especially since many of them are children, and they're going to treat it like an order to send hate comments and harass the minor in question, whether that's your intention or not. And this is precisely why ignoring and moving on would have been the best decision in this situation. And because of this, people immediately started to call him out for his unprofessional behavior. For example, a user named DJ posted a meme to mock how seriously he was taking a situation and captioned it saying, "The big Kirk getting dissed, so you gotta stick your entire fan base onto a minor." And the backlash gets even worse because multiple other users started to make posts to point out how very irresponsible his actions were. A user by the name of Nofi stated, "Hi Kreek, you are sending your fan base of 60 million subscribers to attack a 16-year-old with a history of mental issues. Hope this helps." This user directly confronted KreekCraft with the harsh reality of what his massive spotlight was doing to this person. Another user named Arson Melons chimed in and asked why KreekCraft was beefing with minors. And the minor actually replied to correct them by implying that he himself is mentally ill and still going through puberty, which is not a good look for KreekCraft if true. So it is very clear that a good portion of the community on Twitter is against KreekCraft in the situation, and they're not taking any of this lightly. Now, going to the next major part of the situation, we have to look at another user who got involved, and their profile showed that they are also a 16-year-old who decided to step in and defend the other minor. They aggressively called out KreekCraft by saying that he is sending his fan base there as a minor, while also telling him he should go to jail, and calling him a piece of crap and a disgusting being for his behavior. Now, anyone in KreekCraft's position would come to the realization that this is not looking good for them, and at least try to make amends to de-escalate the situation by taking accountability and ensuring it doesn't get worse, especially since it's a literal minor we're talking about. But instead of acknowledging how his actions were completely reckless and avoidable, KreekCraft replied directly and stated, "Okay, fine, you're getting arrested next." He completely brushed off the criticism and chose to continue this ridiculous joke about arresting people when he becomes president. Now, dude, I'm gonna be very honest here. I genuinely do not understand why he would do this when so many people are already against him for the way he behaved in the situation, and now it's gonna seem to people as if he has zero remorse and did not care about the consequences of the massive platform that he has. Nothing he is doing here is making his case any better, and it's only getting worse and worse, so much that this situation is currently even trending on Twitter just to show how bad the situation actually got. And finally, we have to look at the actual consequences of this entire ordeal, because despite KreekCraft being the massive creator who might have potentially instigated a harassment campaign, intentional or not, the person who faced punishment was the actual minor. Later, it is revealed that the account belonging to the minor was temporarily stricken by Twitter, likely due to a massive wave of KreekCraft's fans going over to Massreport's Twitter account. So all in all, this entire situation just feels like a massive headache that could have been completely avoided if things were handled with just a little bit more patience. It's very easy to see how KreekCraft might have been on the edge and acting out of frustration lately, given the immense amount of unfair backlash and the constant misinterpretations of his words over the past few days, but it is still incredibly disappointing to see things escalate to a point where a large adult content creator engages in a public back and forth that ultimately results in a minor getting a lot of hate from a massive audience and later having their account restricted, likely due to mass reports. When someone is a grown adult and has an audience of over 16 million subscribers, it simply requires a higher level of standards because number one, publicly arguing with minors as a grown adult is just not professional or mature, and this could be easily avoided right off the bat, and number two, reacting impulsively to troll comments only makes a timeline a much more toxic environment for everyone involved. And I genuinely hope that KreekCraft can rethink this through and handle future situations with more patience moving forward. And with that being said, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.